We start this Monday with the breaking news at 4 o'clock. Another acquittal in the death of Elijah McClain.
2 of the 3 Aurora police officers have been acquitted of charges related in the case. 9 News reporter Kevin Bond was in the courtroom as the verdict came in this afternoon for Nathan Woodyard. Kevin?
Tom and Kim, this jury deliberated for about 9 hours over 2 days before reaching this verdict. Officer Woodyard had faced a single count of reckless manslaughter, and the jury also had the option of convicting him of a lesser count, criminally negligent homicide. In the end, they acquitted him of both charges. Woodyard was the first officer to make contact with Elijah McClain on that night in August 2019. Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser took this case to a statewide grand jury and was in court sitting with McClain's mother, Shanine, when the verdict was read. Afterward, he said he stood by the decision to take these cases to trial.
We must all do what we can to stop the unlawful and unnecessary use of force that can result in people dying at the hands of law enforcement. As I've said before, only then will we have true justice and accountability.
Now, this was the second of 3 trials for first responders in this case. There are 2 paramedics who are also indicted by that statewide grand jury. They are scheduled to go on trial later this month. Tom and Kim?
All right, Kevin, we'll have much more from the courtroom coming up in just a bit. But as Kevin was alluding to, also in the courtroom today, of course, as that verdict was being read, the family of Elijah McClain, including Elijah's mother, Shanine.
And 9 News anchor Alexander Lewis joins us with more on that. Alex, we want to hear more about what she had to say.
Hey guys, it was a tough day. I don't know how else to characterize it other than that. Right before the verdict was read, I spoke to Shanine and just kind of asked her, what is her expectation as we go and file into the courtroom? She said she had no expectations. She was incredibly disappointed with the split verdict of Rodema and Rosenblatt, and she wanted to save herself that level of heartache today. So she said she went in there not hoping for anything, having no expectations, but she was still incredibly heartbroken when Nathan Woodyard was acquitted. There's been this sense of like a bit of accountability, right? These officers had their day in court, whether they were acquitted or not. It's some level of accountability when it comes to police violence. But if you ask Elijah McClain's mother, Shanine, this is far from that.
But it's to be expected because of how the first trial went. This is their pattern, this is their practice, and they are sticking to the way that they do things.
Mm-hmm. Was this what you expected?
Yes.
You were super emotional in the courtroom where you even needed to take a moment and you sat down, you stayed in the courtroom for a little longer. What was that about?
Because I wanted to hit somebody. I wanted to kick something. I wanted to take out my vengeance on the ones that murdered my son, because there is no accountability within the justice system, and today proves it once again.
And of course, Shanine did not do any of those things. She's always remained so graceful and poised under these circumstances. But I do want to talk about that moment, because after the verdict was read, she kind of heaved over in emotion. And Phil Weiser, who was sitting right next to her, hand in hand during this this verdict being read, and the prosecutors immediately walked over and they said, "Shanine, what do you want to do?" And she's like, "I just need to sit here for a second." And she sat in that first row of the courtroom for another 10, 15 minutes or so, paralyzed with emotion, before she could stand up and collect herself and walk out of the courtroom and face all of the cameras and the reporters. But this is a very, very, very hard day for this mother. And she says there's another trial set to go after Thanksgiving, and she'll be there ready again to hear whatever comes her way.
So many of us have followed this case, but she's lived this case for 4 years.
Yeah, and that testimony, Alex, again and again about Elijah and how he died. It's just so difficult, and I'm sure that at this point now she realizes that it seems like the officers say it was the paramedics are probably going to say it was the officers as far as the attorneys talk about this case.
That's such a good point, because we hear the one expert after another squarely blame Elijah's death on the paramedics. So what are the paramedics going to do? Probably flip that blame. But it seems like they have a harder road ahead of them as far as the other 3 officers. But I can't even describe to you guys how emotional it has been covering these trials, sitting inside of this courtroom and having to hear this body camera video over and over and over again. So just imagine what it's like for Elijah's mom.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Incredible.
just unbelievable. But she's doing this for her son. What she has done for him from the beginning, just to let us know about Elijah, has been so important.
Incredibly so, and something she mentioned to me today, she's probably going to be mad at me for saying this, but I'm trying to, convince her that this is a good idea. She said she's feeling like the court system isn't really working for her, but she does want to be an advocate when it comes to police violence, specifically against young black men in America. And she's actually thinking about running for office, that maybe that could be her next step and she could create change with policy. So we'll see what happens there.
Well, sadly, in Colorado, that path that Rhonda Fields took
Yes.
when her son was murdered in City Park is one we've seen before. Alex, we'll have more coming up at 5 o'clock. Thanks for joining us.
This afternoon, we are hearing from Aurora's police chief, Art Aceveda. He released a statement saying, "We respect the verdict handed down by the jury and thank the members of the jury for their thoughtful deliberation and service. Due to the additional pending trial, the Aurora Police Department is precluded from further comment at this time." Woodyard was the last of the 3 Aurora officers to go on trial in Elijah McClain's death, and he is the second to be acquitted of all charges. The previous trial of Randy Rodema and Jason Rosenblatt ended with a split verdict. The jury found Rosenblatt not guilty on all charges, but found Rodema guilty of criminally negligent homicide and third-degree assault. Up next is the trial of the 2 paramedics in the case. It is scheduled to begin November 27th.